Yo, 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 what's up, my good people? Welcome into another edition of the Talking Ball College Ball podcast. My boy, Big L Train, still not all the way back home, but close to it in Orlando, joining the podcast today because he's back home from the cold of Finland, but it wasn't too cold, he said. And he got to check that
I
pocket.
that last night was.
Oh, got a little nip, got a little nip.
We got down to 2022.
Okay, yeah, that's a little chilly there. That's a little chilly for sure.
It's a little 22.
Yeah, but yeah, yeah, we had he didn't get a lot. He didn't get to delve into a lot of college football last weekend because obviously he had some duties that were going on the same time Saturday with a lot of the college football games.
Yep.
But he did catch obviously the main ones and knows what's going on. Obviously, we'll jump straight into the big one. My boys, the Florida Gators, catch the L to the Georgia Bulldogs. Obviously, everybody wants to talk DJ Lagway. That was the significance that came out of that game. The game felt good coming in. It was like, what can we do against this team? Let's see. Like I asked you last week, what is the path to victory for the Gators? It was going to be, can we run the ball? Can we establish the run? Can DJ hit some of those big shots? Can he hit some of those shot plays that he's hit so far this season? Could we control their ground game? Could we make Carson, turn the ball over? All of that happened. And the caveat, DJ goes down in the second quarter, hamstring injury, out for the game, looking like it was going to be for the season. Allegedly, it's not as bad as what they surveyed, going in from Billy's presser the other day. But, they created the turnovers from Carson. He turned it over. You get the big shot play. You have the lead. You're in the game. You're back and forth. The defense is playing out of their mind. Carson's throwing you, dumb, inexplicable interceptions, man.
Dumb.
Even with all that, you tie the ball game up with 7 minutes to go. Just for if you would have been sitting here in the living room, I'd have been like, "There's no way we're going to stop Georgia on this drive." They go right down the field, score, pretty much nail in the coffin. The interception on first down, add insult to injury because it gives them the short field.
That's just a young quarterback.
The game was, like I say, I had no expectations that we were going to be able to go on some like game-winning drive with Aiden Warner to go down the field and score, a touchdown.
Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, I know a lot of people are in the camp of if DJ stays, we win the game. I'm not in that category, but I will say Georgia was in trouble if the game would have been going according to that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm getting tired of hearing that. Just like we played this team, beat this team, you lost to this team, you played close to this team, all that rhetoric. Who cares about that?
Yeah, you can't play that.
Like week to week, it's been fun to watch to see how these teams play, and Georgia finds another way to pull it out. And the biggest question I have is what is going on with that offense? I mean, they find enough, they make enough plays to win the game. We know their defense is going to be their defense. Malachi Starks getting beat on that deep ball was surprising because he's normally one of the better heads-up players on the field. And that was just a hell of a throw.
Like Georgia fans were saying, we didn't have our starting safeties in from the Texas game. I was like, that was Malachi Starks. That was your best defensive player who got beat on that play.
By far, arguably your best player on the field.
That's what I'm saying.
Offense, defense.
Yeah, the problem with what happened was the offense went so stale and so stagnant that it just led to basically 3 and outs all day long. I mean, literally there was multiple drives where literally it was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And hell, Florida did a good job defensively late in the game there. They had a couple quick 3 and outs that they did on Georgia, that helped get that drive to tie it up. I think the biggest sequence that really killed them was they didn't take advantage of the early quick turnover in the second half with the Pyburn pick.
Pyburn pick, yeah.
I mean, and then the other one was where the game
was
good
field
tied.
Position.
Yeah, that was at midfield. The other one was, Georgia finally put together a good drive, tied the game up. So you're like, all right, now we're in a dogfight. Can we score again? And you're on a decent little drive. You're going for the lead field goal to take the lead. Smack's been kicking them. It's like a 50-yarder. It's in the wheelhouse. Bad snap by the freaking, and it was just, so then that gives Georgia the short field. Of course they're going to score, so it's just like that was super frustrating to where you're literally looking like, okay, hey, we're going to take the lead right here. Instead, it's flipped. Now Georgia's up 7.
Yeah, that just goes to show you how quick it can change, especially when you're playing a team like Georgia. Regardless of how many times Carson turns the ball over, which he gave you three turnovers, you got 10 points off of 3 turnovers. Any other game, you're sitting there like, hey, Georgia turns it over 3 times and we get points off of those turnovers. You got to feel pretty good about it. But like you say, on that third one, even if you got 3 and you got 13 points off of turnovers, you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the one thing you can say, I don't know, like the last couple of weeks we've both been saying on the pod, we're not sure what the switch that's been flipped on the Florida defense. It's been flipped, but you still got to find ways to score points on offense. And even if DJ was in the game, I still feel like Georgia's still good enough to shut them down enough possessions to win, even if it was a 1-possession game.
Yeah, I wanted to see that shot of like him throwing the ball downfield, and we only got to see it one play, and it was for a touchdown. It's just like I wanted to see that, and it was like so deflating to where you're like, I can't even watch this now because it's like we're not going to get this from a freshman quarterback, redshirt transfer from Yale. So it's like, hell, we were even able to. I was impressed with the Billy's run scheme. We were able to run the ball on them actually.
Paul Jackson did
physically able to run the ball, and we Etienne obviously getting hurt. They had to play Frazier, who we know is a really good back, and he got some good runs. Like I say, Carson Beck is the biggest enigma right now because he can be so good and like
the second half of the Alabama game.
Yeah,
but he's been more first
thing.
half Alabama than second half Alabama.
Right. Think about the Texas game. Like Texas didn't take advantage of those early turnovers. Nope. He threw 3 picks in that game. So it's like if he takes care of the ball and you see Georgia's scheme and offense, like they can move up and down the field on you. But it's just like some of these forced throws that he's making are just like what are you doing, dude? There was 3 Florida guys.
The first pick, it was just like that. The receiver was blanketed underneath and over.
Well, the
Pyburn pick was just
that was a tip ball. His first 2, the Aaron Gates pick was legit. Like he threw it into 3 guys.
Exactly.
It just again, what
it doesn't make any sense how he's been playing.
No, for sure. And like I say, like I told Justin, who's a huge Georgia fan, I'm like, when is Carson going to cost you in one of these games? I mean, it hasn't cost. It cost him obviously in the Bama game, but they're so good defensively, and he's still so good offensively. They're able to overcome those things, because he still threw for over 300 yards. They still moved the ball when they wanted to. It seemed like with ease, but Florida buckled down and had some big stops. But again. They got 2 big ones back to back here, so we'll find out what Georgia's about.
We're going to find out a lot about Georgia these next days. Georgia, Bama, LSU, Ole Miss. We're going to find out a lot about those guys.
Like I said, you got a de facto elimination game Saturday night with LSU.
Bro, it's literally the playoffs have started. I don't care what anyone says. To me, the playoffs have started.
Well, like I said, LSU Bama is an elimination game. That's going to give one of those teams their third loss. They're done. They're out.
Yeah. And then, depending on how Texas plays the rest of this year, the last game of the season could be an elimination game between Texas and Texas A&M.
Totally. But I mean,
but back to this game, I mean, we're jumping ahead, talking about everything else. But I just feel like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year. To me, there's still either got to be a staff change at the top, or staff changes around the rest of the coaching staff. What decisions the university makes at Florida is going to be interesting. But when you watch on the field, you see all those young guys and you see them playing. But if you do keep a Billy, how many guys do you keep? Right. And that's going to be that's going to be every coach in every position.
Exactly. Me and Gator Dave literally talked about that this morning. It's like the fluidity of movement in college football now is bigger than it's ever been because of guys leaving just because for greener pastures, for more money, for more playing time, whatever the case may be.
You don't know.
And like I say, that's even if you keep your coach, if you fire your coach, if you do, what I'm saying? So it's the whole camp of, and this is where the other caveat comes into play. If Lane Kiffin's your guy, you better hope Georgia beats them, because if they're in the if Ole Miss gets in the playoff,
you
ain't getting them.
Just timing. It's just timing.
That's what I'm saying. The window is you're not getting them. So then it's like, are you forced to keep Billy? And then I'm in the camp of, yeah, the team's playing good, but we're not winning the big games. Now, obviously, you throw the caveat of Lagway getting hurt, but he didn't beat Tennessee on the road when we needed to. You got to win one of those games, and obviously you're not going to. You ultimately give them no chance in the next 3 weeks with no Lagway, or even if Mertz was playing, you could say, okay, maybe they can muster up something, but not even with Mertz in there. But there's no way they're beating Texas, Ole Miss, or LSU. It just ain't happening.
No, and then you throw in the whole thing of, all right, if you keep Billy, his recruiting class looks god awful.
Terrible.
How many guys that are actually sitting back and just saying, I'm gonna finish the year out. I'm not saying anything to anyone. I'm gonna transfer out. How many guys are gonna be like, why am I gonna transfer in when I'm watching that week? There's so much going on down in Gainesville where you just
that's
not
the
sure.
big. That's where it's like, if you're gonna keep Billy, you're saying, okay, we're going off. Lagway's gonna be the quarterback. We got some young parts that really look good.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to kill the portal. You're gonna have to be you're gonna have to get some offensive linemen. You're gonna have a couple D linemen. You're gonna have to get some. You're gonna have to get some core guys.
You're gonna have to sell your soul and hope that it works next season.
And like this is another one of Gator Dave's points about, like, when you get in that certain situation and where you are now, you're gonna end up overpaying for guys. And then, then are you buying into the right guys, aka Florida State? It just. But again, on the flip side, where I did say where it's obviously kind of working out now is look at Colorado. Everybody was talking about this. Colorado can't protect and block anybody. And now, they got this whole new line, and now all of a sudden they're working together. They're blocking well for Shador. The Colorado offense is looking good. So, like, if you get the right pieces, but you still got to be able to get your recruiting class up in the top 25. It's got to be
different. But when we're talking, it's different when we're talking portal, Dion versus Billy Napier.
Yeah,
Dion's just going to get guys just because it's Deion Sanders.
Forget that. This is what talks. So
for Sponge, if all things are equal, and you had to choose between Deion Sanders or Billy Napier as a 19-year-old kid, you're going to choose Deion 9 times out of 10.
More than likely, you would think so. You would hope that the money speaks for itself, and then the prestige of playing the SEC and all that good stuff would help come into that to overtake a Deion persona.
Hey, old guy, kids don't care about that anymore.
Well, no, they want to play.
How many times we gotta have this conversation?
They want to play in the SEC. No, they want to play in the SEC.
I'm not saying they don't want to play in the SEC, but when it comes down to it, when you're looking at a Florida team versus a Colorado, and you're looking at marketing, and you're throwing out their money,
they've done
money off the field, all of that.
They've done a hell of a job. No,
that's what I'm saying. Because
we'll find out too next year. When his stars leave, who really wants to go there?
No, exactly. Because you look at it like you talk about with portal guys, you don't know what a guy wants. You look at a Quinshon Judkins. He leaves a really good Ole Miss team. They're still in it theoretically. They're still in the playoff rush push. He leaves Ole Miss to go to Ohio State. Still 2 pretty good situations, but we don't know what the numbers are of him leaving. Obviously, Ohio State played a ton of money. And you look at another guy, Julius Johnson, leaves Georgia to go to Kentucky. Your starting middle linebacker leaves. The ace in the hole for the Georgia defense leaves and goes to Kentucky. We don't know why. Whatever. Could it be money? Could he did not get along with Kirby? You don't know. But some of those situations, when you look at it, you're just like, that makes zero sense to me. They already talk about Zachariah Branch leaving USC to go somewhere else. That's one of the bigger brands in college football off the field where he could make a ton of money. But you just don't know. Sorry to ramble on about this whole thing but it's just things you got to worry about as coaches now during the off season.
Yeah,
and universities.
Sure. You definitely do. And like I say, the thing with it is, you got to re-recruit your roster. You don't know who, like I say, who's backdoor dealing, all that stuff. But again, like what this translated into is what do we do with Billy? And it's like, if your number one guy is Lane Kiffin and he's not available, then you have a plan B. If Kurt Signetti's Indiana team is your second guess and they're in the playoff, you're not getting him either. Yeah. So then you're like, okay, I don't want Lincoln Riley, so now it's like, okay,
you might be stuck. You might be stuck with Billy for another year.
That's what I'm saying. But then it's like, the whole thing of that is like, if Florida goes 7-5 next year, 7-6 or whatever, like, what does that do for you? It doesn't.
Nothing.
doesn't move the needle at all, you know. So you're like, a new coach can come in and do that, you know. So it's just like I don't know. Like I say, let the season play out.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
we're really going to find out how much the defense has stepped up, because they're going to have to carry the load in these next 3 weeks for the big games.
Yeah,
and then hopefully, DJ can get back maybe against Florida State, and you can knock Florida State off at the end of the year to have a cherry on top or something. But
how do you knock off a 1-11 team?
Exactly. It's more so of just being able to say, hey, we beat our rival.
Beat our rivals.
But yeah, we'll just jump into that because this should be quick. I don't even think we need to talk about Florida State for the rest of the season. It's a joke in Tallahassee.
It's a gong show.
We said it. Hampton went slap off on them boys, ran through them, ran up and down them, moved the ball up and down the field. Complete blowout.
172 Sponge, and then he still had another 93 receiving. And it wasn't like he had a 49-yard run for a TD. My man had 5 TDs in that game.
Yeah, the game was never close. It was a blowout from the jump. North Carolina jumped on them and never let up. And here's the thing. North Carolina this year has been not so hot. They've been just a kind of an average team. They've had, good and bad.
They gave up 70 against JMU.
Exactly. A long time ago. But like it just, and it's not going to get better this week. They're a 4-touchdown underdog against Notre Dame. So we'll completely brush. I mean, like I say, there's really nothing to say. It's the same thing every week for Florida State. I think they've tanked it officially.
Yeah.
And what do you do from here is the question. You got to do wholesale changes. They're talking about you got to fire everybody.
You see the whole Keon Coleman thing.
I saw that too.
Telling recruits not to go to Tallahassee, not to go to Florida State.
That's a little surprising. That's a little surprising thing to say. Why are you going to take a shot at them? I don't really get
kicking them while they're down.
Yeah, I don't really get that narrative to push out there. It's you had a great season last year. You were undefeated. You played well.
That has been the calling for Dugans to be fired for a while, because when you look at their receivers,
Odell, they're feeling like those are old heads, old guys.
Yeah.
They're just
I think Odell's been right there on the brink of retiring. They keep talking him out of it just because they want that tradition of Bobby still there, and someone. But they got to have a lot of staff changes this offseason. Obviously, it's probably not going to be at the top because you're big. I think I saw $68 million would be the buyout or something crazy like that. So we know Mike's not going anywhere. But at the same time, Mike's going to have to make those tough decisions like Billy. And if Billy, just say if he's retained, we need a new receivers coach. We probably got to get a new OC. Defensively, we've got to make changes. We got to get recruiters. We got to get guys that want to get out there and recruit. Because both teams are struggling in the recruiting.
Well, like I said, that'd be the same question as who would Florida State go if they wanted to fire Mike this year? Like, who would they go after? Who would even want to take that job? All those things come into play. Like, I don't even know, who is the name? Lincoln Riley?
Yeah. I couldn't tell you who the name would be, but it would have to be someone, obviously, to uphold some of the traditions of Florida State and be willing to recruit.
What's wild is that we're even having this brief conversation about this after a team that just went 13-0 last year.
But that's what happens when they sold themselves for that one season. They sold themselves. Yes, you had a good group of guys, a core group of guys, but then you brought in a shit ton of.
You got to agree with me here. There should be no way in hell the fall off should have been this drastic. Like
the fall off should have been 6-5, still going to a bowl game.
Hello, like what they got going on is because they still got some talented players.
Well, if a bus pulled up with Florida State players without Florida State logos off of it on them, and they walked off that bus, I guarantee you most people would be like, that's a college football team or, borderline NFL team. Because like you say, when you look at the Farmers and the Daryl Jacksons and you look at the size of those guys, they have the talent, the Earl Littles, and, you go down the list of guys they have and you're like, you're not 1-8 and you still the only team having scored over 21 points in the season.
Yeah.
They have not scored over 21 another week. And it's just like, is it coaching? Is it the scheme? Is it the guys have checked out? They got the bag? Like, what is going on up in Tallahassee? Like, even the Miami game, you should be motivated to play the Miami game. You should be motivated to play Carolina at home. You should be motivated in 3 weeks to play Florida. Like, where's that game at? Is it in Gainesville or is it in Tallahassee?
It's in Tally.
Are they even going to sell out? All the Florida State jokes about Miami.
Did you? No.
Thank you.
They literally were posting, like, Knowles fans were posting pictures of that Carolina game. They were like, "Thanks, Mike Norvell. This is what you've turned my football team into." Yeah. And it was they're literally saying, like, obviously they're doing stadium construction, so there's some, like, seats that aren't available.
Well, the one upper.
But again, closed. They were like, "Look at this shit. It looks horrible."
Life comes at you fast when you think you're on top of the world.
No, for sure.
Being on top of the world doesn't mean one season. You got to be up there consistently. One season doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
You got to be up there like Georgia, Ohio State, Bama. At least give me 3 out of 6.
Yeah.
And I can say, all right, you've been pretty good. The 3 out of 6 meaning 10 wins, and the other 2 you have like 8, 9 wins.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right, buddy. Well, your Canes, they came and did in the fourth quarter big time, but the first half and the third quarter, it was like, what's going on here? What is going on here, man?
It's
the Duke. Scored 31 on your offense. They threw for 300 yards and you had 400 plus offense. Like, what's going on?
So the problem I see is the defense can't do anything in the first half. It kind of reminds me. I'm not comparing. When I'm comparing the two, I'm just comparing like how the adjustments are made at halftime. It kind of reminded me of Florida State last year, the first half where they weren't giving up a ton of points like Miami. That's not what I'm saying. It's you see the breakdowns and coverages and different things like that. And then in the second half, last year's Florida State team were so good mentally and connected with one each other. They were making the adjustments for the second half. Miami has been doing that for most of the season, where they've been making plays in the second half has been better outside of the Louisville game. Outside of the Louisville game, the most I think they've given up in the second half was 17. This week they gave up 10. The rest of the weeks have been either 3 or 10. So, but offensively, clearly, we're not worried about the offense.
You got the great equalizer. Bad as you can play defensively, as bad as Cam can turn the ball over in games, he also erases all of that, which is, it's a blessing. But when you mess around and play one of these teams that can, you don't turn the ball over or plays really good defense
and can score and play good defense.
Yeah, that's more so too. Playing a good high-powered offense, when you get down to the to the nitty-gritty, that, like, is it going to be your demise? Is it going to cause problems?
Exactly.
And so, I obviously we talk about how great Cam's been all year, even in the games where he's turned the ball over. He's still been enough, to make fantastic plays, to make the big play, to keep your offense going, to keep points scored. Like I say, he threw for 400 and 5 TDs. Restrepo broke the record with that big, touchdown, late in the game. All that's cherries and roses. But now, like I say, we talked about the schedule is easy peasy. Win these games.
We definitely need the front four. The front four has got to step up. That's just all what it is. We lost another cornerback and Jadis Richard this week. So now we're down 3 talented DBs, Jalen Richard, Damari Brown, and I can't think of the last person at the moment. But we're down DBs. So now you got to find a way to get Zaquan Patterson on the field.
Yeah, they're talking about you got to play him.
You got to play him more. You got to play one of the twins, the Washington twins, the one that plays defense. He's going to have to play more. So we're going to see a lot of younger guys on the secondary, which means the front 7 has to step up. I'm tired of seeing Basaint and Kiko out of position. I mean, I think Kiko's just a traditional 3-down linebacker. He shouldn't be out in space covering people, but I still think he's a good linebacker. But that's more of this week, he'll probably step up and have a hell of a game because it's against Georgia Tech. But for week in and week out, I don't know what it is. Teams know if we just get them guys flowing one way and go back the other way, somebody's going to be wide open. And literally, that's what every team does against Miami week in and week out. We'll start the flow going to the left, and then we'll pop a tight end or a running back coming back, sneaking out to the right side. Quarterback either dumps it in or runs it in himself. I mean, run-wise, they stopped the run. They only gave up 80 yards rushing. But you can't let Malik Murphy have 325 yards passing. He's been struggling all year. You just can't have that.
Yeah, like I say, what's crazy is too, their back, he was averaging almost 6 yards a carry. He only touched it 12 times, and he had the 27-yard running finish with 71 yards. But I think they felt like passing was their way to win the game. Like he obviously 3 turnovers is going to kill you. Yeah, he threw for 325 and 3 touchdowns, but he also turned it over 3 times.
Yeah. Well,
so
I think it's
definitely going to win that way either.
No, when you're trying, but I think sometimes
and he had Murphy had 4 turnovers in the game. So that's what the recipe. That's the recipe for having a close game to getting blown out when you turn the ball over.
But sometimes too, as long as the Miami offense is clicking, it's a detriment to the other team as well, to where they feel like they have to keep going, they have to keep scoring.
You got to keep pace.
And if you can't keep pace, you're going to turn the ball over. And I mean, Miami had a sequence this week where they had 14 points in probably 20 seconds.
Yeah, no,
where they scored a touchdown, got it.
Yeah,
exactly. So but you can't keep playing with fire. I mean, obviously, the one team everybody's going to point back to is the 2019 LSU team and say, hey, they were able to do it with their offense, just keep scoring. But and on the way they're going, the next 3 games, yes, we should win the next 2 to 3 games. But when it gets down to the money games, like you say, we're going to play better defenses that might be able to stop the Miami offense. And can you make enough stops on defense? Whereas we have been in the second half of most of these games, we've made enough plays, but when it's time to get to that dogfight, can we do it?
Yeah, like I say, the interesting part will be, now SMU is in the driver's seat to play you guys. Clemson is got their ass kicked, and it's like, okay, SMU's got BC, Virginia, and Cal to close out the year. In my opinion, they should be able to win those 3 games. They should be better than those 3.
Yeah,
that would then put them in the driver's seat to play against you guys in the ACC title, and Clemson would be out. So it's like, it's again. This is the other big thing is like, okay, SMU is playing good. How good are they versus their strength of schedule? They obviously beat the one team they needed to beat, which was Clemson last week. But now you guys could completely avoid even having to play Clemson, possibly. Where everybody was like looking down the road, like that Miami Clemson ACC championship game would be a good one. Blah 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 blah. But
and that's why I've been saying all year, take it week to week. Let's not look down the road. You need to focus on this week. You can't focus on 3, 4, 5 weeks from now. Because all it can take is one injury away.
Yeah, no, that's what I was literally talking to somebody. I was like, what if a Cam Ward got hurt like DJ and was out for like 3 or 4 weeks?
Like it changes everything.
AKA Jordan Travis last year. So it's like, that Miami offense is completely different. Can they?
Dylan Gabriel goes down,
right? Yeah, no.
I mean, Carson, Will Howard, even though he hasn't been lighting it up, but still, he's still a gamer to where he put Ohio State in good situations, other than the one play in Oregon.
Yeah, I don't know who their backup is because I think Brown left.
Tell you.
That's what I'm saying. Kyle McCord left.
Is it? I know they got the freshmen. They got like 2 freshmen.
I think Brown left.
Yeah, I forgot the 2 kids. One from Miami and the other kid. Was it Justin Sayin? Aaron Nolan and Sayin or whatever.
Yeah, it might be Julian Sayin. It might be him. Yeah. But I don't know. It's more so when you look at like the landscape is, of course you do it one game at a time. So you look at you look at who the potentials are, who's playing well, all that type of stuff. Well, like you just said earlier, like playoffs are about to start now. Elimination games are coming. Teams are going to be battling it out that are these head-to-head matchups, aka like Georgia, Ole Miss this week, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, Bama, Texas.
All these 2-loss. We weren't talking about a bunch of 2-loss teams a couple weeks ago, because a couple weeks ago there was only 1 2-loss team, which was Ole Miss. Now we got like 5 or 6 2-loss teams.
We'll get into the college football playoff reveal later, buddy.
Yeah, for sure.
No, but before we jump into next week, we could talk about some of the other games. Obviously last week the big one was the Big Ten game, the Ohio State Penn State game. Typical Big Ten boring brutality of offense.
Are you still on the James Franklin bandwagon?
Yeah, here's what's wild. Obviously we talk about his record is terrible, all that. In this new landscape, this benefits him because they were talking about how Penn State, like they lose that game, they're going to be in the playoff as long as they win out the rest of their games. They don't have to go to Indianapolis. They're in the playoff, so it goes back to that. He is quintessentially, we've said it before, Mark Richt of Georgia. He wins 10 games a year. They lose the Ohio State game. They lose the Michigan game. He's, would go to a BCS bowl in those days and whatever. But now in this new day and age, 11-1, 10-2, you're in the playoff. Like, we'll talk now. The question is, can you win a playoff game? So
exactly.
I'm not completely jumped off the James Franklin bandwagon because, again, this is where it goes back to being like, would I want Florida to be that way? Hell yes. I would rather have relevance of being a damn 10-win team every year and losing to Georgia or Florida State, but just being in the conversation and being in the mix. I'm telling you. Why would you take 4 wins or 5 wins not being bowl eligible over that?
I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing here. You're just saying that because the last 10 years Florida's been kind of up and down. So you would be happy with 10-2 the last.
That's
10
what we
years.
had. That's what we had with Dan Mullen. At least we were in the conversation.
Dan was on, and see where that got you?
Nowhere.
But what I'm saying is
they fired him because he had one bad year.
But I'm not comparing the Dan Mullen tenure to James Franklin's tenure.
Yeah,
James has been there. He's been there 13 years.
Yeah, he's had a lot of years there.
He's 1-9 against Ohio State now. He's like 1-6, 1-7 against Michigan. He's won 1 Big Ten championship because I think that one year he ducked one of the 2. He didn't have to play.
No, he totally did. Yeah.
So I get it. Be happy with. Hey, I'm not a Penn State fan. I don't care.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, at some point, you get tired of winning 10 games and you're not beating your rivals and you're not winning your conference. And like you say, luckily this year there's a 12-team playoff. He'll probably get in it and they'll probably lose the first round.
Yeah, here's the sad part too, is like, this is what makes it even more difficult to even wrap your head around. Like, okay, they've taken this far. You just go ahead and pull the plug because you just can't do it. And then you don't hire the right guy. And the next thing you know, you're winning 6 games a year. And you're like, what the fuck?
I got a feeling it would not be hard to get somebody to Penn State.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. Like, again, but
it's every situation.
But you better get
situation. Yeah,
but
of course, you got to get the right guy.
But normally guys don't get fired when they're winning 10 games a year. That's what I'm saying. That's just like, that's the asinine take of Ryan Day. Like, if Ryan Day would have lost that game, Ohio State fans would have wanted him fired.
I think Ryan Day versus James Franklin is totally different.
I know,
but Ryan Day's lost the last 3 to Michigan. I get that. The last 3 or 4 to Michigan. But Ryan Day has got his team to the title game multiple times.
Well,
they didn't win.
What if they would have lost that game? And don't you think Ohio State fans would be up in arms right now because then they'd be on the verge of maybe missing the playoff? Like,
yeah, but I think they're dumb.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're over rationale. Like, their rationale is like insane.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
you don't fire 10-win coaches to basically, because you like, just it rarely ever happens. So you're like,
it worked out for Georgia.
Yeah, it definitely did. Like I say,
yeah, I mean, you better have a guy lined up. 9 times out of 10, if you're going to fire a 10-win coach that's been winning 10 games the last several years, there's a guy that none of us know
here's
is already doing backdoor channel.
Here's the other part too. Even when they had Joe Pa, how many national titles did they win?
That's a little that age is different. You can't.
What I'm saying is this.
I know what you're saying.
Penn State has always been just a good team. Like, they're on the verge of. What I'm saying is, like, Georgia is like one of those sleeping giants. Like, we knew that was a case. Then they got God's son in there, Saban's understudy, and Kirby, a guy who knows the culture of Georgia. It was perfect. So like you're saying is, they got to have some perfect, like, magical fit.
I get what you're saying, but
they're still like, the next guy's going to win 10 games too. And then,
but you can't. I just feel like you can't compare college football of the 80s, 90s.
No, I'm not even trying to compare it to that. It's just Penn State is Penn State. Like,
no, I agree, but all I've been saying to you is, at what point, if I was a Penn State fan, I'd be like, great, we beat Bowling Green and Eastern Washington, and we beat that murderers row in the Big Ten.
Well, that's the other part about it too. Their strength of schedule, like, people talking about, Penn State, they had the easier end of the Big Ten schedule this season. Yeah. So like, they're going to benefit by only losing that Ohio State game and maybe backdooring, not having to go play in Indianapolis, to go play that extra game. Like, it's now setting up to where Oregon and Ohio State are going to have to play a second time, just to, where they could possibly for a third time. And meanwhile, Penn State's like, all right, we're going to squeeze in here, and we'll go play Notre Dame. We'll go play Notre Dame, and then upset Notre Dame, and then they're in the the next round.
Yeah, because they got They got UW, Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. If you had to rank those games from toughest to least toughest, I guess you got to throw Minnesota. It'll be Minnesota, Washington, Maryland, and then Purdue.
Yeah, Minnesota's a scrappy team. They've won some games close, but I think Penn State's better than them. But
yeah, we could say that.
Like I say, Ohio State, what's sad is we didn't even talk about the game at all. We just talked about how bad Penn State is. But
Ohio scored State, one touchdown, and it wasn't even an offensive touchdown.
Yeah, they got the pick six early. Like I told you, it was like 10-0 off the rip,
and that was it.
Yeah, they got inside the red multiple times, came up empty. They got inside the 5, or they got to the 2, and literally couldn't get in the end zone. They couldn't run the ball. Do you know who the leading rusher in the game was?
Probably Drew Aller, because at one point I saw he was leading.
It was the tight end. The tight end.
Oh, Warren?
Yeah.
Warren?
Like they couldn't even get Catron or Singleton going. Aller. Yeah. So Penn State offense has obviously been the detriment. They can't get anything going. Play good defense, but
let's go back to that. You hired a new offensive coordinator, right? I can't think of the guy's name.
It's weird. It's like Kanicki or something.
Have you seen anything different in that offense this year from last year and the year before since Drew Aller's been there?
Not at all. Like I say,
you say, how do you not be able to run the ball with two of the better backs in probably the country?
Their offensive line must not be as good. Their
offensive line is decent.
That's what I'm saying. Obviously it's not good against one of the top 10 or top defenses in Ohio State, but again, it's one of those things of this has been their biggest problem almost in the James Franklin era. They can't win the big game. No, of course they have 0 weapons. So like receivers, like that's on recruiting. Like they have nobody. Like they got Julian Fleming, who was Ohio State's 4th guy, Ohio State was like, see ya. Like, and like they've literally had no way. Like we compared it last year, was like, give Penn State Maserati Marv. If they had Marvin Harrison, what would it look like? Give them any receiver.
You blame the head coach and the recruiting staff.
I don't disagree that. Like they've got good backs. They've got obviously a great tight end. Your quarterback is definitely serviceable.
How do you lose your best receiver to Auburn?
Yeah.
How do you lose your best receiver to Auburn? Like that makes 0 sense.
Yeah, they had no offensive prowess in Auburn with what Hugh Freeze was doing. But that's what I'm saying. So they're not recruiting them, they're not portaling them. Obviously, they thought they were getting somebody when he left Ohio State. But again, that's been their biggest detriment. Like to whereas the quarterback play suffered from that. Obviously, people aren't afraid of it, so now they're going to load the box and stop the run. Like I say, all Penn State's got going for them is their defense has been rock solid, and it usually keeps them in the ball game. So, again, they're going to get in the playoff, and they'll probably lose to Notre Dame in the first round because that's what they're alleged playing right now. But the other big games, that obviously the night game,
the one that I think is at the Carolina A&M game.
Yeah, definitely.
That I like I say, haven't seen any of the game. I just saw the score. And I was shocked by that. Like I say, I think we both agree that South Carolina.
I was shocked by the number. That what happened was they came out like gank. They came out like this is the team that I thought was going to come out against Ole Miss. How they came out against Kentucky. They just ground swarmed them. Even the LSU game, how they just came out like gangbusters right off the rip, and I'm just like over swarmed them. Then A&M kind of like got their sea legs and then got the game tight. But then in the second half, South Carolina hammered them again and went right at them. It was actually a really good game. The South Carolina defense really came to play. They were on Marcel Reed. All that stuff Marcel Reed was doing the week before against LSU.
Telling you, hey man,
out there. That front four for South Carolina was after that.
I'm not going to say.
They also Moss getting hurt at running back really hurt.
That hurt. Yeah, he's more dynamic. He's more dynamic than the other backs.
It was like, okay, he's out. Let's keen in on Reed. But again, Rocket Sanders was a beast. Sellers had a big game. And like I say, that the South Carolina team, they've been fun to watch all year. They've been so up and down. You're like, man, that you take back the LSU game. They really should have won that game with the bad call.
The Bama game.
The Bama game was really tight where, they had a chance to
probably should have won. They blew it.
Well, Bama was always in the lead. They had that late stretch where that Bama had to score late.
Yeah,
they did.
No, but remember,
they got the onside.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. They had to do all that to get the onside kick to even have a shot. But
remember me saying this during the preseason show. I don't know what they're drinking in that water up in South Carolina. They get these guys down. Now the issue is, don't be like the Pittsburgh Pirates and let all those guys go in the offseason.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And you would hope.
And that's been their problem.
It seems like a lot of those guys, they've liked Beamer. I know sometimes people think he's a weird guy, he's a strange guy, he's quirky, whatever. Those kids have bought into whatever he's got going on. He's fun. Like, sometimes he's a little outlandish, but like, obviously the son of a legend, Frank Beamer, so he's got them buying into what he's selling. Now, the big thing is, like you said, if they've bought in, they shouldn't be leaving, but again, when somebody ponies up big money to be like, hey,
I was about to say,
Lenora Sellers, you want to play for South Carolina or you want to come up here and play for Ohio State next year? We're going to give you $3 million. All right, sign me up, So
it's hard to turn that down.
So when that starts happening, man, we're really going to have a problem, man. It's going to be like, man,
that's what I'm saying. I truly think
we'll see what happens, but I don't know.
I think South Carolina is the Pittsburgh Pirates of college football. Because Sponge, if you look at the last 3-4 years, all the talent that has left South Carolina, one of their DNs is up there balling in Oregon. The kid Jaheim Bell last year at Florida State, and then Juice Wells, even though he hasn't been playing that great at Ole Miss, he leaves and go to Ole Miss. And you just go around the country, you just look at all the guys that have left South Carolina that are making impacts on other teams, and you're just like, man, if all these kids would just stay, I'm sure a lot of teams could say that at the same time. But if all those South Carolina players would have stayed, how good they would have been. Right. Now, obviously, it all ends up on the trigger man.
Yeah, well, like I say, they did a good job too of at least getting some of those guys in, like Rocket Sanders. Obviously, Sellers was one of the guys they recruited. Ashford was a guy that got from Auburn who's been serviceable as the backup spot in spots this year. Again, the other thing too, Beamer's gotten some pretty decent recruits in there too. But like I say, Dylan Stewart is going to be somebody's coming after him.
Don't be surprised if he goes. If he ends up at Georgia, Clemson,
or
Bama, or Ohio State, don't be surprised.
Yeah, you got to hope that he really bought into what South Carolina was preaching. Yeah. The season they're having, you got to say, okay, because here's what's crazy. It seems like South Carolina, you want to talk about a tough schedule. It's like every time they go here, like they get Vandy this week, dude. Like
I am looking forward to this Vandy South Carolina game. I think it's going to be one of the better ones.
They're coming off like one of the highest of highs, and now you got to go play Vandy, dude. Like Vandy,
hey, sleep on Vandy if you want.
No, you cannot. You cannot sleep on them. So it's like
this is going to be. I still don't understand how Vandy was a 7-point dog last week to Auburn.
Yeah,
who made that line?
Yeah, that was a
steal. That was a steal of the week.
That's what I'm saying. Well, like I say, you put your money where you got Vandy this week, or you're going to take the Cox.
I haven't really decided yet, but right now I'm leaning towards South Carolina. Yeah, but would it surprise you? Would it surprise you if Vandy won the game?
No, Vandy, in all intents and purposes, could and should win. It's just, it's college football, like up and down. Who's going
to but you said it like 2 minutes ago. Which South Carolina team is going to show up? Is it going to be the Ole Miss South Carolina when they played Ole Miss? Or is it going to be the one that showed up to play LSU, Bama, and Texas A&M?
Yeah, no,
because they've had a few of those games.
Yeah, they've been fairly consistent, but again, obviously injury bug's been a little bit of an issue. But no, like I say, as far as other games, there was a couple other upsets. Obviously, Clemson getting bagged against SMU is a huge deal. Is Clemson pretty much done? Is there like their playoff hopes look dim?
They lost to Louisville.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. SMU. That's what I'm saying. Their race for SMU is what it was. But, Louisville did whatever they wanted on them boys.
Well, I think where Clemson's kind of between a rock and a hard place, even though SMU beat Pitt. Pitt only has one loss, so they still need Pitt and SMU to kind of drop one or both drop one here down the road, and they still got to finish out the season. Like I say, we still don't know the stupid ACC tiebreakers, but Clemson's got to win out, and they got to hope.
Clemson doesn't really have to worry about Pitt because I think they're ranked higher than them.
Yeah, but I'm saying Pitt keeps winning, they're probably going to jump Clemson at some point.
Well, that means Clemson's got to keep winning too, so you're not going to jump on them.
That's what I'm saying.
They both got one loss. Regardless, SMU has to lose, and I don't think SMU is going to lose with their remaining games. So what I'm saying is Clemson is, in all intents and purposes, eliminated. You know, they need help. Obviously, they need SMU to lose.
Even if they went out, they're out of everything.
That's what I'm saying.
You're not putting Clemson in.
That's what I'm saying. That's where you go back to the whole 2-loss game. You're going to take a 2-loss Texas A&M or Texas or one of these SEC teams to get there, because they've obviously going to beat some better teams. But I think they would need a SMU upset, and then they would have to go all the way and beat you guys to get in. But I mean, it was somebody. Oh yeah, Iowa State finally. Thanks for playing. See you later, Iowa State. They finally.
I know you've been waiting on that one.
I was totally, because they're frauds. They should have lost to UCF. Who, God, you see UCF's number last week?
Mm-hmm.
Arizona is the shittiest team ever, dude. From hyped up that we were hoping.
I said there was going to be a drop off.
I know, but not the drop off that we still thought that the quarterback receiver combo was going to keep it up, but it has been a absolute disaster.
I see the score. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, UCF body bagged them boys. But anyway, UCF should have beat Iowa State a couple weeks ago. Iowa State should have 2 losses, but they got 1. But they're, for all intents and purposes, they're out too. So now it'll be interesting with what Colorado can do. Can Colorado get in that Big 12 championship game? Is going to be, I think, great theater for all of us, because I don't see BYU losing in their final 3 or 4 games. But I think that's pretty much from last week. I would take, I might be missing something national landscape wise. Obviously, Tennessee beat Kentucky, yada, yada. So like I say, we'll hop into this week. We don't even really have to break down the Gator game, because we ain't beating Texas with a 3rd-string quarterback. Like, it is what it is. Do we get absolutely boat raced? More than likely, because you probably just aren't going to be able to. You're going 3 and out, 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 3 and out.
This is a great synopsis by you. You're like, just get me through the page. Just get me through it. Let's move on. Can we get to Florida State? Yeah. That's all you're thinking right now. Can we get to Florida State?
Again, this would be one of those games where here's a question for you. What would the narrative be if Florida, if DJ plays and finishes the game and we beat Georgia? What would the narrative be going into this week? We're like, hey, like DJ's playing obviously he's playing good enough to knock off, a team in, Georgia who's ranked in the top 5. Your defense is obviously playing better. You were able to.
I think the narrative. Honestly,
I think you would still pick Texas, but you're like, hey, Florida's playing a lot better.
But I think yes, they would say Florida's played a lot better, but the narrative still would have been Carson. If Carson doesn't turn the ball over, Georgia wins the game. I think that's where it's at now. Week in and week out, it's you're hearing more of it around the country. Of hey, Carson is the one holding this team back. He's holding the team back. But at the same time, I feel like he's not. He is. But when you had a Ladd McConkey and a Brock Bowers and all those guys that are no longer there, gone, I think he's forcing it. I think he's just trying to make plays. They don't have that dynamic number 1 that he's been used to the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, that's no excuse for him, but I think that's just what it is.
No, he's definitely pressing, and it's showing. But like I say, on the flip side too, he's looked in spots. He's looked really, really good. So it's like he's kind of like in that same Cam Ward sense of he's able to erase his mistakes by good play, And so, but you can't keep playing with that fire when you're playing against some of these top teams.
But the difference between him and Cam is though, Cam's only he's kind of limited to turnovers.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's thrown. I think Carson's thrown 11 picks in the last 5 games or something. 3 against the Gators and 3 against Texas. But here's the thing: you still threw 3 against a top 5 team in Texas and were able to win on the road. So it's like those things are big. obviously the turnovers against
But
Bama was a detriment early in the year. Detriment.
Can you do
my
that?
word of the day, by the way. I don't know what the hell's going on.
I see. But can you do that against a high powered Ole Miss offense?
Right. No, that's where this game Saturday is going to be. But here's a good thing. What kind of Ole Miss team are you going to get? Did Ole Miss just put out all their offense last week against Arkansas, and we're going to see because Bama's D, and people are still saying that Bama's D is a little questionable.
It's not elite.
It's not elite. They got some really good players, and then when the scheme works, like I say, this is a great matchup of.
But it all depends on where you turn. It all depends on where Carson turns that ball over. Now, if he's throwing from the 50 and Ole Miss picks it off, all
right, we'll talk about that first. The Gators are going to get blown out, so we can move on from this game, right?
Yeah.
Right. We're over here talking about Ole Miss and Florida or Texas.
I don't. But then again, I don't know. Peter Poncho may yell at us and say we have no faith.
DJ Lagway, baby. No,
Peter Poncho's like he doesn't think we have faith in his team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm one of the biggest Gator fans out there. I have zero confidence in Aiden Warner dialing up plays. Again,
that Texas defensive line is about.
Maybe we can run the ball, like we did last week to help them out a little bit. But the problem is,
I don't see it.
The multiple 3 and outs like you had against Georgia. Like it was when you looked at it, it was like bad. 3 and out 5 plays, 3 and out 4 plays, 3 and out 6 plays, 3 and out or 6 yards. Like you're literally going 4 yards, 3 yards, 6 yards, punt. And then you hit a play here, you hit a run there.
Yeah. And you're playing against a top 20 defense this week.
You're playing against a good defense. You're playing against my thing too is I don't care how good. Again, the Gator D is playing good. They're in that bend but don't break style, which has been good. They've limited. I think the stat was they've lowered their rush yards by a dramatic amount. They're averaging less than 100 yards more of total offense a game.
Mm-hmm.
Points per game is gone. Everything's going in the right direction. But again, you're putting too much on your defense here to try to stop Texas all day to where whatever. Yeah. So the question is, do they cover that 21.5? You taking the points or you taking Texas to cover? Hook them, baby. Yeah, I think it's going to be – if I was to pick a score right now, I'd go in the neighborhood of 38-13, something like that.
That sounds about right.
Let's see where I'm at. 38-13. All right, we could brush quickly over this one too. I'll go 49-7 ball game. Done.
The run game. They thought they saw a run game last week against North Carolina. The better question is, can they score 17?
No.
Oh, yeah. Let's move on.
Like I say, I literally, if I'm to pick this score right now, I would say 38-7, 38-10.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like Notre Dame is going to roll. Florida State is bad. There's no reason to talk about it. They still haven't figured out what they want to do with quarterback. They put Cromenhawk in there. He throws picks. You put Brock Glenn in. He sucks. Here's the bad part for Tallahassee real quick before we move on to the Canes is, they kept talking about, what are they going to do at quarterback? What are they going to do at quarterback? If Cromenhawk's not the guy, they are in deep shit.
That's why I say just I mean, they're already in deep. Just roll with them the rest of the way.
But they put him in and he threw 2 picks and he was terrible. So what I'm saying is that's bad. He played good because he had one big run against the Canes last week or the week before. It's just I don't know.
All right, so
it is a mess, bro.
No,
mess.
So what I'm saying is, at this point, does it make sense to keep playing Brock Glenn when you've seen in complete games? You've already seen what you need to see from him.
I guess they're still trying to win a game. I don't know, man. That's the thing. They're just trying to win one.
I mean, obviously, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to try to win a game. But I just feel like you just put the kid in and just let him get his lumps. And guess what? If you figure out this ain't it,
that's the good part. That's a good thing. You better figure out he ain't it, so you're not going in with Cromenhawk next year.
That's my point. Splitting reps and all of that is why? Why are we at this point where we're splitting reps? Who cares?
Yeah,
we need to figure out: do we have the QB or the future, or do we need to either A, get a high school kid in here, or B, get a transfer guy in here?
Yeah, they're gonna have to go portal. They're gonna have to.
Mm-hmm.
So They lose again, 1-9. Florida State. They're gonna have one more. They're gonna get a win the following week against Charleston Southern, and then that's it. They're done. But
don't bag that one yet. Don't bag that one yet.
I'm not. I mean, they're 1-9 as well. If you haven't looked at Charleston Southern's record, so,
I haven't.
They're one. It'll be the battle of the 1-9s next week.
So they'll probably get over those 21 points next week.
There you go. Next week against Charleston Southern, we could really break it down. All right, here you go. Little snake. Is this a snake pit game here? The line's only 11. You know, you're not going to take a knee if you're up big. You know what's going on. Like
I think they remember what happened last year.
You feeling good? Is this a spot that Georgia Tech does not feel good in? I don't know. I just don't feel like any of these teams you got left on the schedule are going to be able to stop your offense.
I think Mario's heard enough jokes about last year Georgia Tech. The only thing that concerns me is this week is the defense getting out schemed. And when I say out schemed is Georgia Tech does all the eye candy, the shifts, the motions, we're going to start left and the quarterback's going to roll back to the right and maybe throw back to the left. And, Haynes King's he's a decent runner. So, but I feel like this week should fit more of what the defense is with the front seven, where Maui Noah and Bassett could possibly disrupt the run game. Now, where Miami has to worry about are the shot plays down the field and the peeking in the backfield and the receiver getting behind them. But,
yeah, well, the question is Haynes King even going to play? Because
is he hurt? I didn't even know he was hurt.
Yeah, he hadn't played since before the Notre Dame game.
Shows you how much I've been paying attention to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, well, they've fallen off the wagon. Yeah, the last game he played was when they beat North Carolina. He did not play against
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, he didn't play against Notre Dame, and he didn't play against Virginia Tech, and they played two different guys in both of those losses. Virginia Tech beat them 21-6 with no problem. Georgia Tech's in trouble because I don't think they could score. You guys are going to score 40. So
yeah.
I think as long as Cam again, like the mantra is, don't turn the ball over, don't make dumb mistakes, don't force anything. Which he's limited the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It should be.
Hey, it's easy when you can get the ball to 2, 3, 7, and 8.
No, like I say,
you sprinkle in a number 11.
What's gone to show is, like Restrepo's been amazing. George has been great, and then like I said, the guy who I liked going into that Florida State game, Horton's been awesome. Your tight end play's been good, and then like I say, Fletcher and Martinez have been bulls running the ball.
Yeah, nice 1-2.
Like I say, the offense is really pumping shit out. They're fun to watch. It's just now.
Yeah. The defense, man. The D line's got to step up. Tyler Barron's been MIA since the first 4 weeks of the year. I think Simeon Barrow's been balling trying to control that interior. Him and Mesidor have been doing a decent job. But it all comes down to can Tyler Barron and what's our boy from who I'm talking about? Bain, can they get pressure from the edges? Yeah. And then even Austin, I'm not sure if Austin's back yet. But it's been great to see a lot of the young guys getting in and say, hey, if you guys can't do it, Zaquan, get out on the field. Malik Bryant, get on the field. Guys like that. Popo Aguayo at linebacker. So the front seven's starting to see more of the rotation guys coming in who are going to be the future stars, the Justin Scotts and guys like that. But don't matter, man. That secondary is so banged up, and we just gotta get the quarterback on the ground and not allow them to throw 300 yards.
Yeah, well,
but I think we win though.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think you do too. Like my biggest concern now, and this is what I was going to bring up, is the fact of your strength of schedule now and who you've played. To where it's like, is it going to be a system shock if you play one of these top teams to where you're like, whoa, this team is fucking legit? To where you looked at it, okay, maybe Florida was going to be better. Obviously, week 1, they're not. Florida State was the top 3 team in the country coming out. Been terrible. Louisville has been up and down this year. Solid here, but, losable games. And then you've beaten up on pretty much the bottom half of the ACC, and then you're out of conference schedule, FAMU, Ball State, South Florida. It's like, all right, is something going to clip you? Like, you go through everything, and then you only have to play a Clemson team, possibly, where we're talking about. So now you get a SMU team. How good is SMU this year? They've feasted on a lower tier ACC where it's just been Clemson and Florida State, or Clemson and Miami at the top. So I'm like, I still think I think Pitt's fraud, but again,
I hate looking ahead. But if it comes down, no, hold on. If it comes down to Miami and SMU, if I'm Rhett Lashley, I am not allowing that defensive line to get off. I'm doing short, quick passes, and I'm spreading it out, and I'm throwing the ball the whole damn game because I'm going to say, hey, we're just going to have to win in a track meet. Because if we try to run the ball and try to keep it in the box,
I think you beat them. I think you beat them too. I'm talking about if you might your best game or your toughest game might be that first round game playing like a Texas.
I think SMU would be not before that. SMU would be the toughest game just because of
it. Totally would. It totally would. But I still think you're
stylistically and injury. Yes. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
But Sponge, you got to still factor in we have half a secondary. And you still have to score enough points to beat SMU.
Yeah.
So you have to factor that in, a team that can throw the ball as well as SMU. And all it takes is for Miami's offense to sputter 2-3 drives in a row, like it kind of did against Cal or against Louisville, to where you get behind and you're chasing. Whereas for where Miami's been lucky, the defense has made enough stops to where the Canes got the lead and start making the other team chase.
Yeah.
Even if it's a 4-point lead, they're chasing and they're panicking. And I think, as you get deeper, you're going to play against offenses that are going to be way better than what you played. And you can't get 10 behind. Because if you get 10 behind to Alabama, to Georgia, to Ohio State, to Oregon, your day may be done.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I said, that's what I'm saying too, is like, if you beat SMU, that's your toughest game. Great.
Yeah.
Kudos. Now you get the bye, and then like technically, if the way the college playoff standings are now, you'd play the winner of Texas Bama would be the first round game or the second round game.
I'd feel confident against either one of them. Honestly, when you look at every team, no one's been dominant.
No, everybody has a war. Everybody has a flaw. Even Oregon, like I want to see like Oregon's had a light schedule, in my opinion, too. They had the big game against Ohio State and they won that. I mean, they played like in years past, you'd be like, man, they're playing Michigan this week. Michigan is freaking terrible this year. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying.
So it's like, I want to see, and like talking about Indiana. Indiana's one of those teams where like we're praising. Have you seen their strength of schedule? Like they haven't beaten anybody.
No. So they have 101 strength of schedule.
Yeah, they're exactly 100.
Because there's no team where, like, just say last year, you look at a one-loss Georgia that lost in the SEC championship game. Nobody wanted to play Georgia last year.
Yeah, for sure.
No team wanted to, regardless of what that one loss, they lost by like one in their title game. I promise you, Michigan didn't want to play them, Texas didn't want to play them, and Washington didn't want to play them.
Yeah, we're gonna have one of those teams, I think, this year too, where somebody's gonna get like, man, this team's playing. Like it could be either Texas or a Tennessee or a Georgia or Alabama. I don't know. It's gonna be one of those.
Yeah, we'll see who gets it going. But as of right now, November 6th, there hasn't been a team where you're just like they're head and shoulders above everyone else.
Yeah, no, because
there's not any.
Again, even like watching that Ohio State Penn State game last week, two alleged top 5 teams, like again, something with Ohio State sometimes just doesn't feel right offensively. They got all those weapons and they're not scoring a lot of points. They're still struggling against decent defenses. So I can't put my finger on. Will Howard looks average. They can't get Judkins going, and they can't get Henderson going. They can't get those receivers going. It's like they scored 20 points against Penn State. Like I say, it's going to be interesting to see. But everybody thought that like Texas was the most complete team, and then Georgia goes in and whacks them, and then on top of that, who is Texas beating all year? It's like what they've had the lighter end of the SEC schedule where they didn't have to play a Bama this year. They didn't have to play Ole Miss. They didn't have to play LSU.
Yeah, and then I guess hell,
they didn't even have to play South Carolina.
Yeah, so I mean. If you look at it and just say Georgia wins out, you'll have to say Georgia's probably the most battle-tested team in the country, just because their strength of schedule. They're number one strength of schedule,
especially if they win these next 2 weeks.
Exactly
after they've already played against the team who's
and they still got to win their rival game. People laugh at the Georgia Tech game, but look at the score of that game the last 2 years.
Well, again, this is what the whole thing that sucks too is. just by winning these next two, right? They beat Ole Miss in Tennessee the next 2 weeks, right? And they beat Georgia Tech, whatever. That pretty much puts them in the SEC title game where they got to go beat one of these teams again. Like they got to just so it's like that's going to give Georgia, another loss. So it's like,
dude, if they do win out, you got to put them at number one. If they win out.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like I say, again, there's like we said it before. It is a complete.
I still don't think. I still don't think they're as elite as they've been the last 5 years. But to win, to go through that strength, that schedule they're going through, and to win out and finding different ways to win, you have to reward them compared to, like you say, Oregon schedule, Ohio State schedule, hell, even Penn State schedule, or Miami schedule.
Well, who you like this week in this matchup we've been talking about with Georgia, Ole Miss?
I mean, right now I'm probably leaning against Georgia just because I know their defense is going to show up and play. It's a big game. I don't know what's the time of this game. I don't know if Lane got his wish.
It's a 3:30 game.
Yeah, so Lane's probably pissed off again that they don't have another night game because he's
LSU Bama was the night. LSU Bama, like that's what he's talking about. LSU Bama was going to be the night game.
Yeah, he's talking about LSU getting all these night games. Yeah. Right now I'm leaning towards Georgia. I just got to see Ole Miss get that offensive clean. Like they hung up 63 against Arkansas. What they do?
Yeah.
But if they could get it going, I can see Ole Miss upsetting Georgia because if Carson keeps making mistakes, and if you put, you can't make no mistakes against a team with a good offense because if you're going to give Ole Miss the short field and you turn the ball over at, just say at your 35, your 40, and Ole Miss only has to go 30, 40 yards. Now it's on them to get in the end zone, but I think they're good enough to put enough points on because who are you going to double team on that Ole Miss offense? Obviously, Trey Harris is probably the guy you're going to point out, but this is a good week for Juice Wells to step up. Henry Parrish keep running the rock. Obviously, we know what they're going to do when they get down to the goal line. They're going to put Pegues in the backfield and go heavy set and probably try to ram it in there. But on the flip side, Georgia just can't turn the ball over. Carson can't turn the ball over. What's the status of ETN? Who's going to step up on the outside? I noticed they're starting to get Oscar Delp the ball a little bit more, even though he's been the inline blocker of the two tight ends between him and Lucky.
Yeah, Aaron Smith has been, their number one.
Aaron Smith,
Like Dylan Bell's still a really good receiver. Still got rah-rah. Like I say, they've got weapons. It's not like they're just like depleted. It's just, and here's the thing. Carson still threw for over 300 yards against the Gators. He still threw for, he's throwing for big numbers. You just got to limit.
It's just all about the turnovers. And luckily, the teams they've played that's gotten the turnovers haven't taken advantage of the turnovers. But if teams can take advantage of the turnovers, like I say, a good Ole Miss offense, hey, we'll see. But I'm leaning Georgia right now.
Yeah, I got Georgia coming out too because I just think Georgia's the better team.
They're battle tested.
You literally took the word right out of my mouth. I was about to say battle tested. Ole Miss, they played LSU. Lost that game. They haven't really played the beef of the SEC like at least they played Bama. They played Texas, so they played two top 10 teams. And both of those games were slobber knockers. I just feel like even if Carson does turn it over, I still think they're better than Ole Miss. I think he overcomes some of those mistakes offensively still, and they're still able to move the ball on Ole Miss. Now the question will be, what is Ole Miss's offense? Can Dart play as good as he did last week? And I don't know. We'll see. I want to see that chess match and see where they go. But I definitely lean Dawgs. Covering the three.
And then can the Ole Miss that defensive line? You paid all that money for that defensive line. They hadn't really done anything this year when it mattered. They haven't done anything when it mattered. Can they step up and make big plays?
Yep. All right, dog. Night game. The classic Alabama LSU rivalry continues. Who you got?
Who you like? Huh? Well, first off, I wish I could be there because know that place is going to be electric.
Yeah, that's always a fun game for sure.
Yeah, keys to this game: can Bama get pressure on Nussmeier? Played against one of the best pass protecting offensive lines in the country in LSU. I just don't think the Bama defense has been elite like we're used to seeing. They've still been good. Then on the flip side, the LSU offense, they got to find a way to run the football. They got to find a way to just get, even if they get like 70, 80 yards, but not just like 70, 80 in the first half, but 70, 80 like when they need a first down when it's like 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, or they just need to extend the drive. And can they get Kyron Lacy and Taylor the ball? Now on the flip side, both sides of the ball, Alabama, just keep doing what you're doing with Jalen Milroe, and hopefully he's healthy.
I think you need to have a Jalen Milroe repeat Marcel Reed type game. Let him run it.
I agree.
Like get Ryan Williams over the top a couple times. Like the question I have is again, where is that Bama defense?
Exactly.
I like Bama in this game just because I feel like LSU's been on the verge of how good is this team, and they've been winning games.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had the big win against Ole Miss in that overtime. But again, they had the game where South Carolina probably should have beat them, so then they would have had another loss. And you'd be like, oh, this is a 6-3 team versus a 7-2 team or whatever. Bama, they've been an enigma because they've obviously played well against Georgia in that first half and swarmed them. Then just had the letdown game, turned it over against Vandy, who's the surprise game. Yeah. And then they've kind of just lulled through, like the Tennessee game. Yeah. They probably should have won that game, and they gave it away. Yeah. Tennessee, well,
even the South Carolina team, the game where they jumped up 14-0, you're like, well, this one's over.
Yeah,
the next thing you know, they just get all lackadaisical. I don't know if that's Nick's not being there to crack the whip on the boys. They just
I don't think
stay focused.
Yeah, I don't think environment-wise LSU will be much too different than Knoxville.
No,
but so again, it's going to come down to, can Milroe and that offense make plays, and what does that defense do against Nussmeier? If Nussmeier is able to throw balls downfield and hit Kyron Lacy and these guys downfield,
well, even the LSU defense, who's been playing pretty good this year, can they make enough plays on defense?
Yeah, like I say, they got exposed a little bit in that second half against Marcel Reed and Texas A&M, where it was like, whoa, what's going on here? So
I'm going with the upset in Death Valley.
Tigers.
Yep.
Roll Tide, roll, baby. Roll Tide, roll for me, dog. Come on, FLSU.
I already knew. Yeah, I already knew.
All right, what is your other circled games that you like this week? It's not one of those
South Carolina at Vandy, man.
We talked about South Carolina Vandy. That was a big one.
I wouldn't say big, but I think just football heads probably sit down and watch this game just because the two teams and how they played this year. And Vandy with their unconventional style of offense, and with South Carolina, South Carolina, this game could get ugly quick. South Carolina could possibly run it up. If I'm the defensive coordinator for South Carolina, I'm trying to control the game with my front four and let it spine Diego and not let Diego get going on his feet and be able to make plays, extend plays. That little play they run where they're running to the sideline, but he still has that option to throw it to the receiver on the sideline. I probably will take South Carolina at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if Vandy wins. Colorado, Texas Tech. I guess we got to highlight Colorado the rest of the way.
That's the game I'm highly interested in that game, because I think Colorado's been hot. Texas Tech has been one of those teams that's they're a good football team. They obviously upset Iowa State last week, but let's see how good.
I like the over. I like the over in this one.
Yeah. What is the over? Let's see what it is.
Total 62.5.
Yeah. I like that. Colorado -3. Would you take the money line Texas Tech at the upset at home dog? I don't know. I think it's gonna be a good matchup, but here's what's crazy. If Colorado goes and loses this game, like all the steam is let out. All the steam is let out from everything that we've been talking about with Colorado and the Big 12 and all that.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, as long as they keep winning, we're gonna have to keep highlighting them. BYU and Iowa State. I mean, only because Iowa State lost last week. Colorado already has a loss in the Big 12. I think 1 or 2. I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 in the Big 12.
Well, they lost to Nebraska, so that was not a conference game.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a 3-team race, looking like the rest of the way to get down to the Big 12. So we're gonna have to start talking about those Big 12 teams as well. And the last game I have is just UW against Penn State. Just how does Penn State bounce back? I mean, UW's not a good team, but they're still good enough to beat Penn State.
I like when you look at Washington's record, they're terrible this year.
No,
It's
no, I totally
no, I
agree.
know. It's just wild. I mean, obviously they lost a ton of guys. I mean, ton of
Yeah.
players.
Oh
The
yeah.
coach leaves, but when you look at Washington, it's hard to like fathom. It's kind of like the Florida State syndrome of like,
Mm-hmm.
how's this team like not like like better than what they're
Yeah.
showing?
But
So it's
but
like
at the
I
same
want to see it.
time,
I want to see it, but I think Penn State. I don't even know what the line is, but I like Penn State
it's
to bounce back.
13.
That's a lot. I don't know if I
Yeah.
pick them to cover that.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think Washington's a good team. The reason why I put it on my sheet is just because how does Penn State bounce back? And Jed Fish is a good offensive coach to where can he dial up enough plays to get a 21? I think if they get 21 against Penn State, it's possible they could beat them. It could be a 21-17 game because the Penn State offense hasn't been lighting it up either.
No, they struggled against Wisconsin the week before, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like
Yeah.
again, they're just they got no weapons, man. When your tight end is your number one guy catching like 30 balls a game, you got problems. But like I think Penn State's gonna win out, and I think they're gonna get in the playoff just because the virtue
Yeah.
of
I can
their
see that.
schedule.
Yeah.
Virtue of their schedule, it's just like, well, they're gonna get in, But
Mm-hmm. Yep.
yeah,
I
the
saw
Big
it.
12, the Big 12 race definitely is. If Colorado can hang in, they're going to be in the mix because it's basically
Mm-hmm.
them, Iowa State, obviously BYU's in the front runner seat.
Yeah, and Kansas
But
State needs a lot to happen too, but
that's
I
what I'm
think
saying.
they're almost out
K
of it.
State. I mean, yeah, a two loss Big 12 team is completely out of it.
I mean,
And
I just mean get to the conference championship.
yeah. Well, even that, I think it's a lot to even get to that game.
Yeah,
because it's literally those three teams. You got the undefeated, and you got Iowa State, Colorado with one loss, and
yeah,
obviously they don't play each other, but the question can be, does Colorado overtake Iowa State in the rankings or whatever the tiebreaker is to get into the Big 12 championship game? That'll
yeah.
be the shakeup talk about. All right, so I don't really have any other matchups. There'll be some other good games I'm sure
No,
that's going to happen, but because it's one of
yeah,
those weekends where you have some big games and then something crazy is going to happen, of course.
yeah, yeah. And then, but the other thing is, how many guys for some of these teams? How many of these guys are going to start checking out and getting ready to go to the transfer portal? So,
Well,
uh,
if you're in contention, I don't think that's going to happen with anybody. As long as
hey man, I don't put nothing past these kids.
Yeah, as long as you're in contention, I think you should be all right. All right, dog. Do you agree or disagree with the college football playoff rankings first
I
initial
didn't even
release?
let me go to it. I already didn't pay attention to it.
They're on board. They're on board with me, baby. They're on board with me. 4 SEC teams, 4 Big 12 teams,
Sure,
or Big 10
whatever.
Big 10 teams.
Sure.
Yeah, basically the top 12 is Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, Miami, Texas, Penn State, Tennessee, Indiana, BYU, Notre Dame, Alabama, Boise State. And then your first four out are SMU, A&M, LSU, Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, how can you argue? You can't really argue with it right now, just because, like I say, 3 weeks ago it was a different story. There was only 1-2 loss team. Now, as teams are losing, those branches are about to get chopped off. So, like you said, A&M loses another one, they're done. LSU or Alabama, the loser of that game is potentially done.
Mm-hmm.
You just keep going down the list and you're just looking at it. Like between LSU and Bama, like you said, I have Bama at number 11 on mine. But if Bama or LSU, I can't see a three loss team make it. But
that's why I think
stranger things have happened.
Saturday night's an elimination game for sure. Now the big question I was listening. This was great. I'll throw this hypothetical because when I was driving home today, I was listening to the national ESPN radio. I forget what show it was, but they had Feinbaum on, and they were talking about is that elimination game? He's like, yeah, whoever loses the LSU Alabama game, they're out.
Yeah.
Then the why can't I think of what show it was? It was
I know what show. It was Fortenbaugh and
yes, Carlin
and Fortenbaugh.
Yeah,
Carlin and Joe.
Yeah. So they asked them, they said, okay, well, you throw that out there. What if, let's just say Alabama loses, they're 9-3 or whatever, they finish out the year. Would you take an 11-1 Indiana versus a 9-3 Bama? And of course, Feinbaum was like, "See you later, Indiana. Goodbye." It's like, thanks for playing. You lost your big game to Ohio State, and you haven't beaten anybody.
See, that's the problem I have. Is like, why the hell are we playing the games then? I get the argument that they play in the SEC, they play better competition, but don't sit here and try to sell me that the Big Ten is the second best conference, arguably the first best conference, and they only have one loss in their conference. Granted, I know their non-conference isn't the greatest, but they still play. They still play one of the better conferences.
But they're not playing any of those teams that are the best teams in the conference. That's the argument that you're making.
Whose fault is that? Whose fault is that?
It's their fault, I guess. Just like Florida State. It's going back to the Florida State argument.
How is it their fault? They can't. They don't make their conference schedule.
It's called bad luck. I don't know. That's what it's just called, bad luck.
You have no control over your conference schedule.
You definitely don't. You don't.
So that's the point I had. Like, if
they're lucky.
Indiana,
so they're lucky.
Hold on.
So they're lucky.
No. So hold on. Take Indiana off. Take their name off. Insert Ohio State or Michigan, which had almost the same damn schedules, 1 or 2 seasons the last 5 years. No one had a problem with it when it was just Ohio State and Michigan playing against each other. And the rest of their schedules were terrible because they played the 1 year where the Penn State game didn't rotate on. What's the difference?
Well, I would say that they probably played a better
what's the
game.
Difference?
It wouldn't be, but I know that they haven't played the schedule that Indiana's played. That's what I'm saying. Ohio State.
I promise you, they played some pretty bad schedules. Michigan and Ohio State played some pretty bad schedules.
When those years happened, did they make it to the championship?
No one even cares.
What I'm saying is, did they make it to the Final Four in those years? You'd have to go back and look at the.
I want to go back and look at it.
The experiment that you're throwing out there.
I get what you're saying
because we throw in the. Again, that's the biggest part of the problem is the power
name.
Rankings.
Insert name.
100%. But what I'll say is, so if you did the same thing this year, like if it was Michigan, they played Indiana's schedule, and Michigan, even as bad as they've been all year, their one loss was to Ohio State, and Michigan would get in because of namesake for sure. And like I say, that's where
that's all I've been trying to say.
And that's where Alabama and LSU. Alabama, it's different now. This is a whole different regime picking these games.
Now it's different.
What I'm saying is it's a different group of committee members. Mm-hmm. So
I get that.
All I'm saying is I'm not about the okay, you got lucky this year that your schedule sucked and you're in. You know what I'm saying? I'm not for that. I'm for Indiana is playing good ball, but if they played
weren't we just talking about I remember us talking about Georgia 2 years ago, and everybody was talking about how shitty their schedule was. It didn't matter. It was.
Yeah.
But did it matter?
Because at least they played some. Here's the thing. What's going to happen is it's going to come down to what that Ohio State game looks like, I guess is what my opinion is.
No, I get that. All I'm saying is,
what if they get beat 42-14?
Yeah, then we'll see. If they get blown out, then you can make the argument. But up until that point, they played their conference schedule. Granted, they probably didn't schedule the best in the non-conference. I agree with that. But don't sit here and sell me they played the second best conference. And then people didn't flip it. Oh, well, they didn't play the top half of their conference schedule of the conference teams. That's not on them. The conference sets the damn conference schedules, not the team. It's not like, if you set the schedule, you're like, oh, I want to play this team this week. I want to play this team this week. I guess, we don't want to play Ohio State this year. Then your argument could be valid. But don't sit here and tell me.
I don't think they've beaten anybody with a winning record.
They probably haven't.
Nebraska's
but don't sell me that they play the second best conference.
I can sell that if they haven't played the teams that are good. It's kind of like Missouri this year. Missouri, or even Missouri. Missouri plays in the number one conference.
And guess what would have happened if Missouri only lost to that Alabama game and won the rest of the way? Everybody would be like, Missouri plays in the toughest conference in America. They play in the SEC. So with one loss, they should be in.
Right.
Is that not what they would have said?
And they would definitely. And here's what I'm saying. This is why I have Indiana in even with one loss. I'm just throwing the hypothetical out there. I don't necessarily have to agree with it. That's what I'm saying.
I get that. But all I'm saying is I hate the argument of we're not talking about like a Boise. Hell, pick an ACC team. Even if you say it's an ACC team and a Big 12 team. Then I could be like, okay, I could kind of see what you're saying. But don't sit here and tell me. I've never said the Big 10 is a great conference. I never thought that. But somebody has to be number 2, I guess.
Yeah, well,
but you have the pundits. But you have the pundits out there saying that the Big 10 is the best conference.
It's because they've got 3 teams like in the top 5, like in the top 10, or 4 teams. They got like multiple teams ranked in the top,
right.
Like, again, this is why I said a couple weeks ago, I think that ACC and Big 12 are one bid leagues, and it's going to be
outside of the Ohio State game. Who is Oregon playing?
Let's see, the Ducks. They beat the group of 5 team that's going to get in Boise, and that's pretty much it. Illinois was ranked at the time. Yeah, like, again, Oregon hasn't. I'd love to know what their strength of schedule actually is.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, granted, now if Indiana beats Ohio State, this argument is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. They're in.
Right. Yeah, for sure. This is where it goes to where, like, Oregon kind of benefited again, like in Indiana. They basically, Oregon and Indiana, they're having a great year. They don't play each other. Oregon played Ohio State. Great, that's good. They didn't play Penn State this year. Hell, they haven't played Iowa or Minnesota, who's good.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. I just hate the argument of just because it's Indiana, they're not deserving. They're not deserving because it's Indiana. What if Oregon lost this week? Doesn't matter who they play. They lose this week, and then you're telling me 11-1 Oregon versus a 9-3 Bama. Who are you taking?
Yeah, you're going to take Oregon. You're going to take Oregon because
why are you taking Oregon? Why are you taking Oregon?
Because they beat Ohio State, who was number 1 at the time. So they have a great quality win, like a massive win. But again, I'm just throwing the hypothetical out there. Is if, like, let's see it happen first, and let's, like, we'll argue it then. I'm just throwing the hypothetical out there. I don't even agree. I would take Indiana. If Indiana loses by 28 against Ohio State and they win the rest of their games, I would still put them in there.
I just feel like, hey, handle business.
Where I would have
don't mess around.
Okay, all right. Okay, here's a better hypothetical. What if it came down to, going back to my 2-loss theory? What if it came down to a 2-loss LSU or a 2-loss Texas A&M or a 2-loss Ole Miss? Well, Ole Miss would have more than 2 losses. But let's just say one of those SEC teams only ends up with 2 losses and doesn't have to go play in Atlanta. And then you have Indiana, who got beat by Ohio State. So now you got a 10-1 Indiana versus a 10-2 LSU or Texas Tech or Texas A&M or whatever. I would probably take the SEC team. Just because then Indiana wouldn't have beaten anybody that's even ranked, or they wouldn't have even played anybody that's ranked except for Ohio State, which you would lose. What about that? What about that hypothesis? Still going with Kurt Signetti?
So a 2-loss Missouri, you would take a 2-loss Missouri over Indiana?
Not this year, no, because I'm going against the schedule. Who they play?
They're 2-loss SEC. You keep saying 2-loss SEC. You got to say a 2-loss with a quality schedule.
I threw my scenarios out there with the teams that are good that I have 2 losses.
You said a 2-loss SEC team. That's all you said.
Then I named.
And I waited for you to finish. So then a 2-loss Missouri. You walked right into what I wanted you to walk into.
Okay, good.
So you would take a 2-loss Missouri over Indiana.
Let me look to see who they've got left on their schedule, because now
Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas.
And their 2 losses were to
Texas A&M and Bama. Their best win was over Boston College.
It'd probably be South Carolina then after that.
South Carolina's not ranked.
After they beat Vandy this week, they will be. Let's see. Where's Missouri at?
I'm looking right at it.
What's sad is Missouri's still ranked 24th in the country.
I'm looking right at Missouri's schedule. That's why I brought Missouri up. That's what I'm saying.
Here's what I'm saying. Here's where I walked into your Tigers den. This is where I would go, no, their strength of schedule sucked. But I didn't use them as an example. I used the teams that are ranked higher that have more of a chance.
You said 2-loss SEC.
But then I literally
start going down.
Because they're not even in they're not even in my wheelhouse. I don't even care if they lose 2 games.
Sponge. Don't tell me the SEC is the best conference. Then you change it and say Oh,
I'm not.
these 2-loss teams in the SEC.
But I didn't even
Those
name
two.
Missouri because they're not even my wheelhouse of even naming them. I would because they haven't played the strength of schedule that those other teams have just played. That's my point. Like Tennessee has played a way tougher schedule. It still matters. It still matters who you play in the conference because that's why they have strength of schedule, right? We just talked about what Indiana's strength of schedule is. Go look up Missouri.
You don't control your conference schedule.
I understand that. What I'm saying, the argument is Missouri's not even going to be in this conversation even with 2 losses because you're going to have better 2-loss teams. I gave you my scenario of these teams. So look at the rankings. Look at the rankings.
I get what you're saying.
So answer that question. Forget Missouri.
I get what you're saying.
I'm picking Indiana, a 1-loss Indiana team over a 2-loss Missouri team. Okay. So now you answer my question. I answered your question. I'm picking Indiana.
But you said a 3-loss Bama.
No, that was the first question. I threw that out. I still said I would take Indiana. I said hypothetical, whatever. Like, let's get our hypotheticals down. I would take Indiana in a 3-loss Bama race.
I'm not punishing Indiana.
Okay,
even to a 2-loss at Texas A&M.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's where I don't agree with that. Like,
what's the best Texas A&M win?
It'd have to be LSU, who's a top 25 team, top 10 team. Yeah, their second loss would have to be to Texas, so that would put them at 10-2. So you would take.
It'd be three. If they lose to Texas, it'd be 3 losses.
Oh yeah, you're right. Oh, there you go. So you're okay. That's a great point then.
So,
you just walked into my Tigers den. If
Texas, you probably would take them just because they beat the top 5 team.
Well, that's what I'm saying. LSU's going to do the same thing. Bama's they're going to have to play like
these
top.
Then stop using conference talk. Stop saying SEC King of the Hill, and then when you say Missouri, I'm not talking about them in the conference. I'm talking about their strength of schedule.
When I literally stop saying SEC. I literally named the teams. Go back and listen to the tape. I literally named the teams. I said LSU.
I know what you said. Yeah, and I cut you off before you finished.
I'm not even thinking about Missouri. Missouri's outside out of mind.
Because you said a 2-loss SEC.
I did.
But you didn't say Missouri because they are a 2.
There could be a multitude. So if you want to throw them in the mix, so I answered your question. I said no. I would take Indiana over Missouri. That wasn't a hard question.
All I'm saying is I'm tired of hearing teams put this team in because you want a brand name. I get it. It's for TV. Of course you want the brand name in. You don't want Indiana in because it's not a brand name. It's just like the MLB last year. Did they really want, who was it? Texas versus Arizona? No, of course they didn't want that. They want what they had this year. Arizona. They wanted the Dodgers versus Yankees. I get it. You put Bama in because Bama is more sexier than Indiana. I get the team. It's about TV. It's not about who's better.
I wouldn't put the 3-loss Alabama or LSU in over Indiana. I wouldn't do that.
But a lot of people would because they'll say, Alabama's better because blah blah blah.
Yeah, like I say, we'll see. Like again, they would technically have a better win. They would have a better win than Indiana would have. Now, you can't argue that.
But if you would have just say, hypothetically speaking, Georgia loses this week but wins out.
Right.
Now that's a 2-team. I could say, all right, they have a legit argument because the murderer's row of teams they had to go through this year because they had the number 1 strength of schedule. That's a legit argument. Yeah. Now the other ones, you could kind of say, I don't know, because you look at Bama. Of course, Bama's best win is against Georgia.
Like I said, that's literally what's going to happen next week. Okay, that's going to be your 2-loss argument is going to be Tennessee. What do you do with Tennessee? If Georgia knocks Tennessee off, that's going to be their second loss. Tennessee will win out, but they're going to be 10-2. They're not going to go to Atlanta. So again, that would be like, do you take a 10-2 Tennessee versus a 11-1 Indiana? You know, if it came, or can you fit them both in there? That's but I don't.
Or excuse me, potentially 1 loss BYU, 1 loss Iowa State, depending on if they both win out.
Both leagues are done. I don't care. I'm telling you, there is no way in hell you're taking Iowa State.
I'm just saying. You have to factor it in. Like, what doesn't help them is their strength of schedule and their non-conference schedule. Playing in the Big 12 doesn't help them.
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm saying.
But at the same, plus they haven't really been They haven't really been dominant. But I mean, they beat their rival, which is a Big Ten team in Iowa. So that's a quality win.
The Big 12 and the ACC are one bid leagues. I said it right now. They're going to get the conference champion in, and that's it.
So what if SMU beats Miami? Miami's undefeated.
That'd be your only caveat. If y'all lose, you get 2 in there.
So stop saying they're only a one bid league. You got to say you got to let it play out and see.
You're not going to lose. That's why I got you in there. You're a one bid league. It's like if BYU loses, they're out. If BYU loses to Colorado or Iowa State, I think they get bounced.
Yeah, I mean, if those teams are smarter,
that's where you're going to have that. That's where you're going to have that conversation of, again, would you take a 1-loss BYU versus a 2-loss Tennessee and all that blah 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 blah. But again,
I get it. But that's why I think those conferences need to get smarter, and you got to start beefing up your out of conference schedule, which I never brought up for like 3-4 weeks.
That's definitely going to start happening. Well,
you see, I meant to bring this up 4 weeks ago, and now it's just hitting me that I think the ACC, the Big Ten are talking about doing like an ACC Big Ten style matchups like they do in basketball. I can start seeing some of the conferences doing that, even if it's just one vote, home and away.
They're pretty much going to have to do that because it's pretty much going to be these 4 conferences playing against each other. And that's what it, the new landscape, I think, is going to go that way to where you're not going to play a lot of these bum teams.
I mean, because
you're still going to have to. You're still going to have to give those teams charity money, so they can get their paychecks,
which they should
to help out those teams. Well, that's what I'm saying. You got to have the sport. You got to have those teams. You got to still have those teams. Still got to have budgets and stuff. But yeah, they're definitely going to start scheduling better and more interconference games between the Big Four, which I think is going to be good.
Even if it's just one. I think there should be one, and I'm fine with every team playing 2 cupcakes, because those cupcakes just helps those budgets. Like when Florida State, Miami play a FAM or BCC and stuff like that. That just helps their budgets. That just makes football better. And ultimately, you might be able to pluck a guy in the transfer portal.
Definitely. All right, Dog. Well, I'll let you get back to your travels because you'll be traveling home tomorrow. Your day off in your hotel. What's the weather like now? It's kind of gloomy here. Raining.
It's a little gloomy. It
was muggy as hell today, man. Like,
hey, let me put it like this: when that door opened last night, I was just like, Jesus, I am back in Florida.
Sweltering jungle.
Whew. Dude, going from
like today was weird. It was like when I got out of the car today, I was like, God, it's like sticky hot. It's like, well, this sucks.
Yeah. Well, my last 10 days, the high been the whole time was maybe 38, 39. And the rest of the trip's been in the high 20s, other than the Sunday where it was low 22. So 20s, 30s, most of the trip. A lot of snow. But then, like I say, to come back to the humidity was oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
Trust.
Yep.
All right, buddy, bro. Well, like I say, we'll watch these games this week, see what the shakeup is.
Sir.
Eliminations for some teams will have their 3rd loss, like the Bama or the LSU team. Who's going to get upset this week, possibly? Who's going to ball out? We could probably talk a little more Heisman talk, even though I still think the same guys are in line that we talked about the week before.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's stretched out yet. Even though Cam, like I said, I think everybody's
the leader in the clubhouse, in my opinion.
I think he is too. I think everybody's had a gimme game. I think Genty is kind of, he's right there. Whatever. Shador is still being Shador, but I don't think he's interesting. I think if they keep winning out and he keeps putting up big numbers, because we know clearly they ain't running the football. He could vault himself into the conversation.
Yeah, he could make a trip for sure. He could be one of those.
I still think him and Travis may cancel each other out being teammates.
Right. Exactly. All right, dog. Well, like I say, we'll holler next week. We'll talk it up. We'll wrap it up. We'll chop it up. Everybody enjoy your college football week, and we'll holler at you next week. It's crazy to believe that we're down to like 3 weeks left next week, man. Enjoy it while it's here because it's almost over.
Yeah,
at least we got playoffs.
Playoffs.
We'll do a little
like,
playoff
subscribe, share, everybody.
Holler at your boy. Holler. Go Gators. Beat Texas. Hook them down.
You don't even mean that.